We're on air.
I'm sorry?
We are on air. Good evening. I wanted to welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Elaine,
Here.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Rotman has not arrived, Chair Wermick.
Present.
We have a quorum.
And we have 2 excused members, correct? Okay. Can I have a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, the agenda was available for public access at the City Hall Bulletin Board on the west side of Council Chamber by 9:00 p.m. on Thursday, July 6th, in accordance with our policies and procedures.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. We're into public comments. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on consent calendar and other items and items of general interest within our jurisdiction. Please note that the Planning Commission is prohibited from taking action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Speakers will have 3 minutes each. Testimony for public hearings may be offered at this time or at the time of the hearing, and we have no public hearings tonight, so testimony on item 4A should come at this time. Are there members of the public who wish to speak?
None have signed up in advance, and there is no one in the waiting room, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll go forward to the next item, which is number 1. It's the election of officers, and I'm going to turn this back to Planning Director Hadwin.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. It's good to see our new faces tonight. So we will begin with our election of officers. We'll begin with the election of the chair. So the chair presides over the meetings and keeps us running smoothly, and will serve for a term of 1 year that would expire June 30th, 2024. With that, I will entertain any motions or recommendations for the chairship. Commissioner Miller.
I would second that nomination.
Is there any commission discussion on the motion? Commissioner Elaine.
I would just like to, I guess I would like to third the motion. Just to point out that Chair Wermick, I think, represents the commission very well. She's out in public representing us. She represents us to the City Council. She takes the position very seriously and is reliable and does a great job.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, I will open it up to a roll call vote. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Elaine,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts, excuse, and Chair Wermick.
The motion passes. Congratulations, Chair Wermiak. Moving on, we will go to the vice chair position. So the vice chair serves in the absence of the chair and also helps moderate the meeting. And I already see Commissioner Miller jumping to make a motion. So Commissioner Miller.
I would recommend Commissioner Elaine to be vice chair.
I second that.
A second from Commissioner Baker. And a third from Chair Wermiak.
Hard to get her on the commission. She's always thoughtful, always contributes in a way that pushes us forward, and it would be a pleasure to have her as vice chair.
Any other comment or discussion from the commission? All right, I think we've heard it, so we will take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Elaine,
Aw, shucks. Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
and Chair Wermick.
Yes.
So that motion passes 5-0. Congratulations to our new vice chair, Elaine. With that, thank you very much. I look forward to continuing to work with you all, and I happily hand the chairship back to Chair Wormiak.
Thank you so much. The next item is the consent calendar, and we have no items on that tonight. The third is public hearings, and we have no public hearings. We have one item, which is new business. Jim Landy, owner, requesting approval of a development permit application for a development of a 4,866 square foot, two-story mixed-use building and related site improvements on a 10,000 square foot lot located at 605 East Sunny Dunes Road, Zone CM, GPMU. And can we have a staff report, please?
Chair Wormiak, before we have the staff report, I did just want to point out an error on my part in that we do have someone that had signed up to speak on this item. So perhaps if you wish to entertain it, we could have them talk
I
at
would
the conclusion
be
of the
happy to
report.
entertain it.
So I apologize to Anthony Stark. We'll have you speak after the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to the new commissioners. My name is Ken Lyon, and I'm a principal planner here with the City of Palm Springs. So the project before you this evening is a mixed-use multi-tenant building on Sunny Dunes Road. The images there before you is the front elevation of the building. The building is brought forward to the front edge of the property, which is basically bringing it into alignment with the other buildings that are on most of this section of Sunny Dunes Road. So a bit of the project details. Chair Wormiak has explained that this is a 4,866 square foot, two-story mixed-use building on a 10,000 square foot legal non-conforming substandard lot. We say that because in the zone in which this is located, a minimum lot size would be 20,000 square feet. This one, once the roadway dedications have been made, is a 10,000 square foot lot. The uses that are being proposed here are by right uses, the cannabis retail lounge, art gallery, and a caretaker's unit. The uses at this point have not been confirmed. However, the owner is in negotiations with the cannabis business who did receive a regulatory permit for this particular parcel, which was through an earlier design proposal. Since the owner has taken ownership of this lot, they are in negotiations with the previously approved cannabis use to possibly be one of his tenants. But we are not discussing the cannabis use tonight. It also has off-street parking and landscaping, which I'll go into a little bit more later. The application includes an administrative minor modification. Because of the substandard nature of the lot and the overall lot coverage, they were able to get into the parking area a total of 12 spaces, 13 are required. So with the administrative minor modification, they may seek up to a 10% reduction, which is about what one space is on this particular project, to request that it be reduced in order to, because they've basically accommodated as many as they could given the small lot size. As Chair Wormiak mentioned, this is the commercial manufacturing or CM zone, and the general plan is mixed-use, multi-use. So the uses are consistent with both the general plan and the zone. This is exhibit that was in your packet as well, part of the justification letter, giving some context to this particular site and this part of the city. It is a conglomeration, if you will, of various uses. Commercial uses have become more and more prevalent in this particular portion. There are retail uses and commercial uses across the street in this particular block, and a few of them also on the south side as well. These are the elevations, and I understand your packets as printed were dark on these two exhibits, and so I've provided you with color copies at your podium today. So the front elevation, as you can see, is 2 stories. The second floor slightly projects over the first floor, providing shade and a bit of cover on that first floor set of entrances. As you look at the north elevation or the street elevation, the caretaker's unit is there above the blue door on the right side of that particular image. On the rear elevation, you can see the parking lot. The caretaker's unit there, of course, is the solid volume that you see on the left side. you'll see there's a blue doorway on the first floor, and there's also a yellow panel, an accent panel there, and there's an opening there that goes back into an elevator, and there's a second stair that's inside the building, as well as the one that you see there adjacent to the parking lot. The access to the parking lot in the back of the building is through the opening that you see on the north facade, and is wide enough to handle both two-way traffic in and out of that parking lot. Here's an axonometric view of the proposal. You can see on the roof they are proposing photovoltaic panels. There are 2 pad elevations or pad locations for mechanical equipment, and all of that equipment is screened properly per the city ordinances for screening of mechanical equipment. As you can also see above the caretaker's unit, there is a small roof deck there, which is also proposed. The pattern, this is not simply an asphalt parking lot. The applicant is going forward with a higher quality surface, a precast paver, and he and his architect have put this forth in a geometric pattern that you see there. These are the way that the interior spaces lay out. This is, of course, not really something that you would probably get concerned about, but you do see the way that the retail spaces are laid out. There is a stairway there in the middle that serves both floors, and then, of course, the second stairway, which is the exterior stair. There's also an external balcony or passageway on the second floor that provides access to the art gallery. If that space were to be subdivided, that entire area would again accommodate multiple or breaking down of that space into 2 or more uses, or 2 or more tenant spaces. So the findings, as noted in your staff report, this project does conform to the development standards for the zone. It does conform to the guidelines and findings for approval of a development permit. And as noted in your staff report, we were able to make affirmative findings for the minor modification, reducing the parking by 1 space. We have evaluated the project under CEQA, and we're recommending that you adopt a categorical exemption as an infill property. So our recommendation this evening is to approve this project subject to conditions. The applicant and his architect are in the audience and will answer any other further questions, and I am available to answer your questions as well. So thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question for staff. Mr. Lyon, first of all, thank you for providing the new exhibits, because the other ones were very difficult to read.
I saw that earlier today.
And honestly, the building is much more attractive when you can see it.
Right?
Here's my question. The gallery space upstairs is beautiful, and part of what is beautiful about it, it is transparent. You see all the way through it. My experience with art galleries has been typically they want a vanilla box. You want to hang your art on white walls and not have direct light coming in, let alone through. I really like the architecture here. Is there anything that would prohibit the user from essentially blacking out all the windows, covering them on the inside? It would give a very different look to the architecture and to the building that may work better for the art gallery, but may change what we're looking at here.
Yes, the applicant does propose using drapes on those large expanses of windows as additional solar control in addition to the shading elements on the building, and they are going to be using a very high-performance glass to deal with that amount of glazing. It is possible that they could wind up using opaque panels on the backside of that glass or the drapes, but from the exterior, I think the building will still retain a very glassy appearance.
When you're saying a high-performance glass, I presume that means it's got some degree of shading or tinting or reflectivity.
Well,
So-
it'll be low emissivity glass, and it will probably have a slight tint to it, but it will not be reflective in the sense of it being a mirrored finish. We don't usually do that.
But I'm not going to be able to look through the building and see the clouds in the sky on the other side as I am in these exhibits.
Probably not the clouds in the sky, but probably at night it will have a certain glow to it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I just question, you mentioned that you were going to go over landscaping later.
I can go over the landscaping. Yeah, do you have any specific questions?
Well, I didn't really see any, just 2 trees. I'm assuming that's the reference.
Yeah, if you go on to, I'll pull the sheet number up for you here. On sheet L-1.1, you see the plant palette in terms of the shade trees, the inert ground cover, rocks, and other plantings. And on the sheet L-1.0, you see that there are some plantings that occur in a tiny slice of space on the east side of the drive aisle. There are also planter beds on the corners in the rear part of the parking lot, and some amount of plantings adjacent to the stairway on the back. There's a narrow strip of planter bed also along the street front. They've not shown plants there, but they certainly would be able to put plantings in there if they wish to do so.
Thank you.
And for the benefit of the newer commissioners, that is also a detail that will be looked at in with more refinement at the architectural review process.
Although we do make suggestions for things to look at for the Architectural Review Committee. So if you have them, please.
My only concern, and today is a prime example, there's just, even though it's a beautiful design and beautiful tile, there's just a lot of hard surfaces and very little shade to protect, the cars and the customers going in and out of the building. That's all.
The parking lot, in terms of the trees, they do provide the code required amount of shading, and they kind of squeezed in as many trees as they could in that back area, given the amount of parking that they needed to put in.
Is there a requirement in this for the size of the tree?
We would normally require a 24 to 36-inch box.
So
And
that's something that we can comment on.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head the size of these, but let me see if I can pull it up for you quickly.
They show 36 to 48.
36 to 48, yeah. So that's our typical standard.
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
2 questions, well, one's a semi-question for staff. And it relates to what Commissioner Alain mentioned about the glazing on the second floor for the art gallery. Are they going to be able to meet Title 24 energy standards with that much glass?
I've asked that question as well, and they have not gone through their preliminary Title 24 analysis. So we've had some discussions about how they may need to accommodate that. It may be that they use some opaque spandrel panel glass that's insulated, or other ways of accommodating and meeting Title 24. But yes, they will have to.
Thank you. And then the other question really is related to street trees, landscaping, and it's more a comment more than I think a question. I'd like to see, if they can be accommodated, some sort of street trees along Sunny Dunes. I know Sunny Dunes, for whatever reason, has been developed in part because of the parking without street trees. It's devoid of street trees, in fact, for 3 or 4 blocks. But I believe it's never too late to try to accommodate them. If we can get them in there, I would love the Architectural Review Commission to look at that as a requirement.
We can take that forward with your recommendation for so, and we will also check with engineering in terms of whether we can get some tree wells in that public sidewalk and still have ADA passage past
Let's
them.
not move ahead of ourselves. We'll be making recommendations in a minute after we have public comment. Are there more questions?
No,
Oh, please.
I actually have a question for the applicant, and I don't know if we want to do that right now. Or
I believe the person who's going to be speaking is the architect
Yeah,
who will be speaking
the
for
owner
the
and the
applicant.
architect are both here.
Oh, okay. So we will have, then you'll be able to ask your question. Seeing no more questions, we'll go into public hearing. You have 3 minutes.
So Anthony Stark.
Good evening, Commission. Nice to be here. I'm the
Tony,
architect.
Tony, speak into the mic there if you would, please.
I'm sorry. Good evening, Commission. I'm Anthony Stark with Corsini Stark Architects. We're very excited about being in front of you today. Any questions you may have, please ask. I might want to just add a little bit on that, on the art gallery. Obviously, this was the shell we did. We haven't done anything on the tenant improvement, the actual design of the art gallery itself. But in the past, we've done things with movable walls and sliding walls that can be folded and be parallel, maybe in front of the glass or inside the space, 4 feet back, and we can have have panels for displaying artwork, et cetera. It won't be on the glass, or won't be, and that way also we can control the sun control and et cetera, from that. So we can make rooms within that room is what our intent will be. Okay.
Do you have a presentation, or are you just here for questions?
I'm just here for questions, yeah.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, quick question, really. The roof terrace, is that anticipated to be strictly for the use of the caretaker's apartment, or is that going to be open to use by the public?
Correct, just the caretaker.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner
I
Logan?
I have a question. My understanding, the caretaker is also the owner?
Yes, at this time, it will be, yes.
Okay.
We like the idea, one, we think that this is sort of a unique aspect of the CM zone, and be able to have a potential unit, or really as a mixed-use kind of a project. But we like the idea also of eyes in the neighborhood. This will be something that'll, someone will be living here, be watching the property, and hopefully create, some additional, energy on that street in the evening time. So we're excited about that.
I'm trying to find the setback of the face of the building from the curb, and I'm not finding it. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, the overhang is right at the property line on the second floor. So the ground floor is set back about 4 feet from the projected.
From the overhang?
Yeah, the projected volume of the second floor.
But how far back from the curb is that?
It's, I think it's 10, might be even bigger, 12 feet. The curb, I think there's it's on the plan, but I believe it's 10 to 12 feet back. It's on you can see it on the civil drawing. There's a 5-foot easement, and I believe there's another, I think it's an 8-foot sidewalk. So I think it's plus or minus 12 to 13 feet from the curb.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Commissioner Miller's question about trees. Have you considered street trees in that area?
In what we got back from Bureau of Engineering, there was no statement about street trees being required. There is none currently along Sunny Dunes. If there's a new policy with this, we might be the only one on the block, but maybe we start something. At this point, it wasn't required.
I think it's probably, I don't know from staff whether it's required. My guess is that it wasn't, but I think we're all concerned about urban heat right now, with good reason. And it's something that may come from this commission as a recommendation for the Architectural Review Committee to look at. Are you open to that? Why don't you come up and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Jim Landay, and I moved here about 2 years ago from Provincetown. This is my first time trying to get involved as a property developer, and my primary instruction to Tony when I engaged him was to make it very beautiful. The concept for the building originally was I looked carefully at the Howard Lapham building next door, which is a beautiful gem of an international style building. I took my cues from that. I went into my own PowerPoint. I popped up that building to a second floor, and I said, Tony, build me this. And he instead responded with something that was more complex, beautiful, and works very well. I work part-time as a ticket taker at the Architecture and Design Center in the Mies van der Rohe-inspired building there by E. Stuart Johnson. And I also am well acquainted with the Mies van der Rohe Barcelona Pavilion. And so in response to the question about blacking out the windows, I would hope that no future owner would do that. But I think the building's beauty comes from its transparency from front to back. And as for displaying art, my conviction was, as Tony explained, was that we would have movable partitions constantly changing depending on what the show was. The specific question about the street trees, going into this manufacturing warehouse district, there are no other street trees anywhere, either on Sunny Dunes or on an industrial place. And I just made the assumption, erroneous perhaps, that street trees couldn't or wouldn't go in because the sidewalks are already solid and there are no there are no wells for trees there. But I'm not opposed to the idea, of course. I mean, it would make my building look like a little bit of a oasis, perhaps, in the middle. But it certainly wouldn't conform to all the rest of the street there. I'm not opposed to it. That was our thinking at the time. Thank you.
Are there other questions of the applicant? Before you sit down, and we'll be going into comments, it's very rare for me to see a project that I like just completely the way I like this. I think you've done an absolutely beautiful job. Going into comments, I know I've stepped into comments, but I will take comments starting with Commissioner Murphy.
I'd like to echo your compliments for this project. I spent a lot of time on Sunny Dunes going to Townie Bagels. So I know the area well, and I think this is a welcome addition to not only the street, but to the entire neighborhood. So I also compliment you on the design and the effort to put it forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Baker?
I agree. It's a beautiful design. You achieved your goal and what you were trying to do. And we only mentioned the trees, and I say that because I brought a project before this board a few years ago, and they mentioned the fact of having street trees. And when the county built its new health center on the corner of Sunrise and Tockwitz, they put beautiful trees out. Although you're right, there's not a single tree anywhere on this block. It's just the idea we're trying to get away from is just pure hard surfaces and to alleviate desert heat as much as possible. It's not like we're trying to bang you over the head with this, but it's just sort of our whole idea of moving forward, creating a more sustainable living environments.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I would certainly echo the accolades for the design of this building. It's absolutely beautiful. And also reiterate what I believe to be a great need for street trees. I'm only guessing that the reason there's not other trees along Sunny Dunes for two reasons. One is there's a lot of back-out parking and swing-in parking, and so that kind of precluded it. And I think just some of the buildings, the age, perhaps the city wasn't quite as savvy as they are now with the need for street trees. And so I'd like to promote the idea of street trees if it can be accommodated and if we can pass it along to the
So
architectural
is that a
review.
motion that you're making to approve and to ask the Architectural Review Committee to look at the possibility of street trees and see if they can be achieved?
Yeah, I can turn that into a motion.
Thank you.
I would,
go
but
ahead.
I want to wait to see if Commissioner Lane has any additional comments.
I would second the motion of Commissioner Miller and add that as somebody who walks along that street on a not infrequent basis, you find yourself skipping from here to there, trying to find a drop of shade anywhere. And although, yes, there are not other street trees along there, are other trees, there's just not much shade, and it would be a welcome respite to have a place where you could pause for a minute before you go out into the blazing sun again. I think that is an excellent suggestion on behalf of Commissioner Miller, and with that, I second his motion.
Thank you. Oh,
I think I would just like to sort of maybe state what the motion is, just so we have that on the record if I could, holding that motion, holding that second. I would move approval of a major development permit and an administrative minor modification for a 10% reduction in parking for this location at 605 East Sunny Dunes Road, with the one recommendation to pass along to the Architectural Review Commission to try to accommodate street trees if at all possible.
Can we just, if you're open to this, include in discussion with the city's engineering department as well? Because I am concerned about constraints in the right-of-way here and some of the conditions along Sunny Dunes, so I'd want to make sure that we're consulting with them as well.
Absolutely. Would certainly include engineering review, and part of all is that in the word accommodation, if it can be accommodated within the constraints of the right-of-way, which are limiting.
Mr. Lyons, you had your hand up. So
Also, just to clarify your motion, you are making this recommendation for approval based on adopting the findings in the staff report?
That's correct, including the infill exemption under CEQA.
Thank you.
Question.
please.
The blue doors on the front, is there ingress and egress only from the parking lot, or are those double blue doors functional? There's a double blue door on the street. Are those functional, or all entry and exit coming in?
That is functional, correct, from the street.
But is it really going to be functional, or is it just going to be locked?
I mean, I think we wanted to have a front door for the ground floor. This was a visual, connection, and from the streets, et cetera, from people parks across the street. So we thought it would be important to have an actual working door there.
But as I think of cannabis distribution, you're going to have to go through an ID check, so I'm assuming that's probably going to be at the back, so those front doors are probably not going to be utilized.
Yeah,
as
or
a-
depending
for
on how the plan
emergency
works inside,
exits.
maybe they both come to a certain point. We have to look at the plan. We haven't obviously done the tenant improvement at all. And that may change. You're right.
While you're here, and I know, hopefully I haven't closed, I know I closed the public hearing, but I have one question for you, which is fenestration on the back, especially on the caretaker's apartment. Was there a reason why you had no windows on that the long side?
There's a stair that goes up to the deck on that side, on that
So
east.
it's precluded by the construction, by the
Yeah, by
the
that, we
layout?
could, and then there was a bathroom, the bathroom for the units is sort of underneath that stair, so it just, we just didn't, it
Thank
was
you.
partly, yeah, it was part of a privacy thing we were thinking of as well.
That takes away any comment I had.
Okay.
I have no comments except to say that I really like the project. Can you call the roll, please?
Go ahead and use the system, so go ahead and enter your vote, please.
It's not letting me vote yes. Oh, it is, okay. This passes unanimously. Congratulations and thank you. Okay, this may be one of the shortest meetings in history. Planning Commission reports, requests, and comments. I want to take a moment to welcome our two new commissioners, and I was wondering if Commissioner Baker and Commissioner Murphy would like to make a statement of any sort.
I am just really thrilled to be part of the commission. I was anxious to get this packet. I got through it. I was surprised at its brevity. And so that helped for my first meeting. So this is a nice way to kind of break the ice, so I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
And it's nice to be on the other side of the podium from the planning instead of asking for something. But I've seen and that's nice to see how the sausage is made after always asking and saying, well, why are they doing this? And why are they bugging us and making us do all these things? That there is actually a reason behind it all, and I appreciate it and happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you both. Okay, Director's report?
Yes, thank you. And I would also like to echo everything the chair has said and others welcome. And if there's anything I can do to make this transition smooth, please reach out. But looking forward to working with both of you. And also Commissioner Rotman, who's not here tonight, but he's familiar with the city and its processes, so I'm sure he'll acclimate very quickly. A couple of items from me. As a number of you know, we have been working on our general plan update, our limited scope general plan update for a number of years now, and for a host of reasons, I think it's certainly taken us longer to get it across the finish line where we want to be than we had anticipated. However, the end is in sight, and I am excited to say that we have announced a public hearing at a joint meeting of the City Council and the City Planning Commission to be held on Monday, July 24th, where we would consider the housing element and adopting the housing element at that time. We had productive conversations with the state HCD department on their outstanding comments and have gone through a process to sort of beef up some of our fair housing commitments that we will be making in the housing element in response to some of their directions. So we will give a presentation that night on sort of the evolution of those conversations, what that will entail. Of course, you'll receive the packages in advance of that, as well as the draft report. So we'll have time to go through that discussion, but we are anxious and excited to get that across the finish line because, as you know, and as we've discussed in these chambers before, you know, we are not in compliance with state law, which opens us up to certain legal risks and types of development in the city that we would not have the ability to shape or inform in the planning process while we are out of compliance. So we're anxious and excited to come into compliance very quickly and think we have a good plan. So we'll discuss that then. So stay tuned for the materials in advance of that. And again, happy to answer any questions in advance of that as you're working through those materials. Again, particularly new folks who haven't necessarily been, well, Carl, I believe that you, Commissioner Baker, I believe you've been involved in the process a little bit. But to others, you know, we'll get you up to speed as quickly as we can. So that is that item. And then just a couple other things. I believe once upon a time, we had members of the Planning Commission serve as liaisons to the Architectural Review Committee and sit in on those meetings just to ensure that there was sort of a two-way flow of information, since so often they are looking at projects that have received a decision and direction from the Planning Commission, and it's just good to sort of have that flow of information. So I think it sort of stopped during COVID when things, you know, were obviously working in a different way than we were used to, and as we're coming out of that, on the other side of that and starting to function a little bit more normally again, I think we'd like to re-up that process. So I have developed a calendar that I had printed and somehow lost on the way into this room, so I will circulate it to you all digitally. But we have essentially going into August break just 4 months of the year left. And the new members, you are spared, and that we will let you focus on becoming acclimated to your role as city planning commissioners. And so I've gone alphabetically through the calendar for the returning commissioners. And Commissioner Land, that means with the A in your last name, you are up for September, followed by Commissioner Miller in October. Commissioner Roberts will take November, and Chair Romick, you will take December. So I will circulate this calendar after this meeting so that you all have that, and then you folks will be up in 2024 once we set that calendar. So looking forward to restarting that process and making sure that we're able to stay on the loop on the decisions between the two bodies. Related to that, now that we are sort of a full commission again and we've gone through the appointment process, we are working on opening the recruitment process for the Architectural Review Committee. Obviously, with Commissioner Rotman joining us from ARC, we have his vacancy and we have a couple others there as well. So we will post that, start to get applications in and go through a recruitment process for that. I would ask that if you have architects in mind who you think could be helpful on that committee, please reach out to them to let them know that the posting will be going up. I will send it to you all when it's live so you can circulate it to your contacts. If there's anyone you want to put on my radar that you would like me to reach out to or Chair Wormiak, we would be happy to do that. We are really looking obviously for seasoned, experienced architects who can help in those conversations. So any recommendations you have, send them our way.
We have 2 members on that committee that are not architects. We have a community member, and I don't know if John is up. if his term is up or not.
It is not, no, he's
It is
he's
not good.
continuing.
And then we have a landscape architect on that committee, and I don't know if their term is up either.
I will also circulate the list of vacancies and terms so that we all have that information as well, and that you can see those backgrounds so that we can start to think about what gaps we might need to fill.
If you have suggestions, it's really important that we recruit people. That's how we've had our strongest members.
That concludes my updates.
Thank you. That said, I'm going to adjourn our meeting to, and I'm going to adjourn, oh, one question for you before I do. Will be the first item on the city council agenda?
The agenda is still being set. As I understand it, they will do the joint meeting first, because that's how they have to agendize it. You will hold your conversation and your decision, and then they would close that meeting and move into regular city council. So it will be 5:30 p.m. on Monday, July 24th.
So I'm going to adjourn this meeting until Wednesday, July 24th at 5:30 p.m. Oh, Monday, I'm sorry. Monday, July 24th at 5:30 p.m. And we are not anticipating having a Wednesday, July 26th meeting. And so we will be meeting after that in September. We'll have the month of August off. Thank you and good night.
Thank you all. Good night.